Hello and welcome to Battlefield 4 with Newcastle Watson. I'm just going to give you a quick run through of how my tank is set up and why it is set up and what weapons to avoid using and what weapons I prefer to use. First and foremost, my preferred weapon and my main weapon is the Sabot shell. Now the Sabot shell by design spins at a higher velocity than the AP shell, which allows it to hit a target quicker and harder and allows it to penetrate and do higher damage roll against most armoured tanks, most armoured vehicles, APVs and other vehicles such as that. This shell is pretty poor against infantry, but the tank shouldn't really be used against infantry because its weaponry isn't really good enough to be able to take in on multiple on-foot soldiers. Now the HE shell, as by its design, the HE shell is designed to hit a metal object and detonate and cause maximum explosive damage. Now against tanks this doesn't really do a great deal of good because most tanks and most armoured vehicles these days are what's known as spaced armour, which is basically a plating of armour followed by a bit of space followed by more armour and then the people tank, where the people, the driver of the vehicle, the gunners and so on sit. Now this shell by design will detonate on impact and then it will exert most of its energy before actually reaching where the people are, and at that point it won't have enough energy left in the weapon to be able to cause any damage whatsoever. Most likely to happen from using these shells against armoured vehicles is you will most likely cause module damage, either throwing a track or doing any other light damage to its tracking systems and other things like that, but you would not be able to go toe to toe with another tank firing AP or a Sabot shell with you if you were firing these back. Now the AP shell is what you start off with, the 120mm shell design for a smoothbore gun, which is what the Americans use. This is again, it's a very good weapon. It's not designed with HE in mind, it's got no explosive tip. It's designed to go in and do maximum damage against armoured vehicles. As I say, I prefer the Sabot shell just because it spins and it travels at a high velocity, doing more damage on impact to the target. Now the secondary weapon, if you're fitting the coaxial LMG and the HMG to your tank as your secondary weapon, you are probably tanking wrong. The tank in Battlefield 4 is not really designed to take on small infantry and soldiers because the weaponry just doesn't do the damage what it should do. The coaxial 50 caliber would normally take a single shot to kill someone or to severely injure them. On world tanks this will take multiple shots, and most likely you'll probably just get a sustained damage or suppression kill. You won't actually get the kill. The canister shell I believe is a little bit of a red herring. Now the canister shell is the 120mm alternative to your Sabot shell. Now the difficulty with this particular weapon and the staff shell is this is fired out your main gun. So once you fire this particular weapon, you have to wait for your gun to reload in order to fire the weapon again. If you was to go against a tank and you fired this at a tank, it would be very ineffective against the tank, and then when you swapped weapon you would again have to wait a short time in order for your main gun to be reloaded. Whereas with the guided shell and the coaxial guns you can instantly swap between the two, allowing for greater swap, but as said before, the coaxials aren't really useful. The staff shell is a particular shell that I don't really get much use out of. Again, because you've to swap between the two shells, I find it limits your damage output, and with a tank when you're going against another tank it's DPM, damage per minute. You want to be doing the most damage that you can, and swapping between this shell and another shell is just takes too much time and you lose too much damage in that swap. The guided shell I believe is the choice that has to be made for this particular weapon. This allows you to track vehicles, boats, aircraft, tanks. Now to track aircraft you do need your gunner to have a soft lamp, which we'll go through in a short time, but this, when it's tracking tanks, you can shoot a tank from quite some distance. If someone is using a laser painter or a soft lamp, which we will go through, this will allow this shell to fire at that, allowing it to lock onto aircraft, jets and multiple targets around the map. Some targets that you are so far away you can't even see, but because they're being painted, the target is there for the shell to lock onto. So this is the weapon of choice, and because it's a complete different weapon and it's fired out of a different measure other than the out the tank turret, you can swap between this and the sabot shell without suffering any reload time, which allows you maximum DPM at any one time. Now the countermeasure, personally I choose between the IR smoke and the active protection. Now the IR smoke is great, you start out with that and it is a really good countermeasure. And in the basic start, if anyone is trying to track you with a soft lamp, a guided shell, the javelin and any other weapon, aircraft and such, you can deploy this smoke and it puts a cloud of smoke out, making it impossible for these tracking systems to get a lock on. Now with some jets, obviously they're getting lock on you, helicopters are getting lock on you, you smoke while you're travelling, you're outside of their range anymore, they're no longer able to see you. If someone is soft lamming you, this gives you the chance to get out of the way so they can't soft lam you. But it's quite drastically a pre-measure to being shot. You need to be pretty quick with this to get it deployed before you're actually being shot at with any targeting weaponry. The smoke screen I find is just practically the same as the IR smoke, just not as effective. The fire extinguisher, when you're going into battle, you want to be able to survive longer than anybody. You don't want to be getting to the point where you're needing to use a fire extinguisher after the battle. You won't recover any health while still engaged. You will only recover health after the battle has stopped. Now, this won't increase your survivability. You can't trade shots quicker and longer with the fire extinguisher, whereas if you have the IR smoke, you're preventing someone from shooting a missile at you and other things like that. And then we come on to active protection. Now active protection is a great defensive countermeasure in the sense that this allows you to defend yourself against any incoming shot. Now I believe it only works against one incoming shot. I could be wrong in that measure and it could be a couple of shots, but I believe it's just one. Now the way that this would work in real life terms is they would be machine guns on the roof of the tank, which would radar the shell coming in and destroy the shell before it reached the tank. Now in Battlefield, again, this will keep you from taking one tank shell's worth of damage, one incoming missile, but it's poor if you've got multiple contacts and multiple people firing at you, as you can only defend against one shell. The others will still hit and do damage, which obviously that's why I sometimes prefer to take the IR smoke out, as it allows me to defend against multiple incoming threats rather than just the one. But the active protection has the benefit that it will protect you against the tank shell. So if a tank catches you unaware, you can deploy your active protection and it allows you to take one more shell, and if it takes you 4 shells to kill a tank, they will need 5 in order to kill you if you use this active protection, and it is effective when you use it. Now the optic scope, personally I used to enjoy using the zoom scope because it allowed me to see further across the battlefield and I could take shots at a greater range. And shooting from a range made it quite unfair on the opponent, as they weren't able to get an accurate shell on you or an accurate shot on you, and this allows you to deal more damage on them at a greater range without endangering your own vehicle. And then, but the thermal scope is basically a counter to the fact that the tank driver is no longer able to fit the proximity scanner. The lack of being able to fit that makes it very difficult to combat infantry that might be attempted to see for you from around buildings, walls and in other various areas around the map. So this would allow you to spot targets quite quick because they are highlighted in white, like you can see in the top right there. That allows targets to be spotted, people that are hiding on rocks, in trees, in bushes. So that is my choice on that, and as I say, that is just a counter to the fact that you can no longer fit a proximity scanner. Now, upgrades on this, I tend to use the auto loader. Now, my basis for using the auto loader is I am quite an aggressive tank player on Battlefield. I like to be doing maximum DPM at all times, and this auto loader allows me to increase my DPM to allow me to possibly sneak 5 shells out of my tank to someone shooting 4. And sometimes if you're facing a tank face on, you'll most likely need 5 shells. If one of your shells is missed or you shoot at an angle, you'll most likely need 5 shells, and a clip contains 4, and the quicker reload allows you to get the 5th shell out quicker, allowing you to destroy the target, get away and recover some health. Now reactive armor is kind of more of a defensive measure, and this allows you to take the extra shell. But I also find if someone has managed to get behind you or to the side of you, then your reactive armor is only going to delay the inevitable by 1 shell, which if you have an auto loader fitted, you can fire 4 shells into the rear of the reactive armor tank and it would be destroyed. The same into the side. This only really becomes effective over distance, or if you are face onto a tank, that's when it becomes difficult. But other than face hugging a reactive armor tank and you happen to not be the one that got the shot off first, that's where the difficulty comes. Thermal camo, I really wouldn't use this or maintenance, because they are not preventative measures from taking damage. These are more after cases. The thermal camo will prevent vehicles from being able to lock onto you from further away. It'll give them a greater time to lock onto you, but it won't save you from any damage. Same as the maintenance. If you're relying on your repairs more than you're relying on your survivability, you most likely will end up dead before you're able to use this maintenance. And as likewise with the thermal camo, you gain nothing on the battlefield other than you just delay the inevitable by a bit of time. So it's between the autoloader and reactive armor. If you're aggressive, the autoloader. If you're a bit sneaky, reactive armor might be the way to go for you. Now for your gunner or your number 2, again, because the proximity scanner can't be used or isn't the likely choice, the thermal scope is probably the best thing to use on your second in command, because this again allows him to see anyone coming to soft lam you, relay information to you, and you're able to move out of the way, or he's able to kill them with his 50 caliber weapon. But as stated before, the 50 caliber weapon that the gunner is given is very poor on the tank and doesn't do the damage that it should justify to do. And then last but not least, the gunner's upgrade. Now the gunner can be fitted with the belt feeder, but as stated before, the gunner's gun is terrible. The amount of bullets it takes to kill any person with critical hits or rates is just too long. So your gunner's main job isn't going to be taking down targets with this. The proximity scanner is fantastic for city maps. If you're in and around buildings a lot on certain maps, this is fantastic because it shows enemies up close to you, and it will prevent you from being C4'd, which ultimately is one of the worst and most, I'd say, humiliating ways to die, is allowing someone to get next to you and C4 your tank. Now the gunner incendiary allows the tank. Your gunner incendiary allows your gunner to fire like an incendiary round into an area, burning the majority area. But as I said, it doesn't really help to do a right lot of damage against them. Against infantry, you're gonna kill 1 or 2. So the soft lam is the choice. Now the soft lam makes the gunner on your tank such a needed part of the tank crew, because he will target aircraft, jets, tanks from a distance, and he will allow you to be invulnerable from aircraft, because this allows you to target them, and using the guided shell, this allows you to destroy them, meaning they are not likely to come into close quarters with you, and they will stay outside a distance of at least 500 meters in game to prevent the soft lam from being done. Now at the same time, if you're engaging a target and your gunner is soft lamming them at the same time, this allows people that are also using the guided shell and the javelin from around the map to see a little square icon on the person, and if they target this will allow them to fire at this target without actually having visible eye contact. So if you are engaged heavily with a target and they are being soft lamped, there's quite a good possibility that other people around the map are also shooting at that target, allowing you greater survivability, which is basically, when you're going into battle with a tank, you want the battle to be as unfair as possible. You want it to be as most one-sided in your favour as you can. You do not want to go into battle in a fair fight. You want it to be unfair and you want to win. And this is my setup for my tank. This is my setup for my gunner. I asked the gunner that usually joins me in my matches to put this particular setup on him because this helps. If you are going out into battle, this is what I recommend, and I hope to see you out there and hope to have some nice little battles. Thank you.